So here's the lightning round. These are more sort of fun questions, less in depth, but hopefully they won't be a pain in the butt to answer. And they're quick. So I want to know what creation that you've made still moves you today. You look at it and you still have an emotional response.
I can't think of anything. I mean, I've been asked the question before, which is your favorite creature? And it comes down to like the same old saw, which is, well, you ask me like which of my children I like better. It's just like, to me, it's all this field of stuff, that, I did.
But there's nothing you look at less favorite, more still has an emotional pull where you look at it and think like maybe I didn't finish it or maybe it could do more, maybe it could do this other thing where there's still some sort of reactivity or all of them.
I never look back.
Okay. Okay.
I really never do. I mean, as I've gotten older, I've started to a little bit, I feel myself gravitating, looking back, and there's something about like the nostalgia, thing that I'm very wary of opening that door to,
Sure.
So I tend to look in the other direction. What's next? Yeah.
Fair enough. Who is a director you've worked with where you had a real creative synthesis?
I found that, Paul Verhoeven and I were, pretty much um, on every level, in terms of how we conceived of art and our politics joined up. I mean, working with Lucas and Spielberg, they're really tremendous, commercial filmmakers. They're driven by a number of things, but their own autonomy in a very commercial world insists that what they make money. So they're very commercially oriented that way. And it's not that Paul isn't doesn't realize the, necessity of being successful
Right.
to do your next thing, but you know, he's when asked, you know, who he makes his movies for, he says, I make them for myself, and he's willing to, fall on his own sword, if the movies don't make money, and what I also like about him is what he thought movies or art or somehow he said art doesn't have to be about anything. Why does something have to be about something? It doesn't have to be about anything,
Right.
you know. So and it's just yeah, I think just that and then the creative management thing that I mentioned earlier about the symphony orchestra and all that stuff. It was just, we think very much alike.
He's a very interesting artist, you know.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
really is. What books do you love and why? I try not to make this like a top 10 type of thing, so just anything that you love.
Yeah, I am, among other things, dyslexic. And so reading material it seems like it's gotten more and more difficult for me in terms of how I manage my time. So I can't keep any kind of consistency to any reading, and it's hard for me to find material that I care about enough to actually sustain doing it. And then if I am even, I just don't have the reading when I go to bed doesn't quite work because I can't keep the continuity. So I pretty much uh look at art and science periodicals. You know,
What
that's
about audiobooks? Is that a thing or not a thing?
no, I haven't gotten into that.
Okay.
I tend to, you know, I like to be able to like sample, pick things up and put things down. Like go on YouTube and like, I wonder what this is. I wonder what that is. I know, okay, well here, looks, I'm gonna look about like, the formation of cellular life on Earth and see, I mean that, I'll just you go out there and like cherry pick things that interest me at the moment. And currently I subscribe to a science magazine called New Scientists, and they came out with a new, um, I think it's a quarterly thing or twice a year on consciousness.
Mm.
So I'm going through that right now. That's interesting.
Sounds right up your alley.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. What is a great piece of advice you got in any aspect of your life?
You know what? I was really lucky to have mentors in my life. I mean, I really think that that was my secret weapon was that I always sought out those people that knew more than I did or had what I didn't have um, mentally. And when I was a kid, I was working on a 16 millimeter version of Guy's movie, Bill Stromberg, who was a mentor of mine. And he was doing this short version of Ray Bradbury's Sound of Thunder, which is a dinosaur hunting expedition time travel deal. And so Ray was speaking. I was living in San Diego at the time, and I was like 16 or 17 years old. And he was speaking at a college, and I brought down the script and some pictures, and he gave his talk, and I gave him the script and the pictures, and then he wrote back, and that started a correspondence that lasted for years and years and years. But anyway, so Ray's philosophy at that time was a huge encouragement because I would get like my my father was an artist, like a weekend artist, and understood what I was doing, but nobody else did. And I got a lot of guff from other um, family members about like, well, you're 17 years old, well, you're going to be out of high school. What are you thinking about doing? And it was like, oh, I want to be an animator like Ray Harryhausen. Well, do you think that's a smart thing to do, Phil? Maybe you want to think about a fallback position, of like being maybe teach at an art school, And it was like, all that point, I just think, fuck you, I don't know, I don't belong in this world. And so when Ray was talking, giving his talk, he he would preach, love, love, love was his mantra, like in the 60s, John Lennon, love, love, love. It was like, do what you love, because if you do what you love, and you fail at it, you will be in a far better place than if you never ever tried. And it was just like, that's all you need as a kid is to have an adult tell you, frame things conceptually, like that, just go for it.
Yeah.
What do you got to lose, really? And that led to like philosophical, discussions that we had during our correspondence as the nomenclature changed from his love, love, love. It turned into, follow your bliss.
No.
And then follow your passion. And so I looked up the word passion, and it comes from Latin patai, which means to suffer, you know, on the cross.
Does it really?
Yep.
I didn't know that.
And that's art.
Yeah.
That is the takeaway. If I had to teach anybody anything, is that if you choose to follow your passion, you are going to suffer, you know,
Yeah.
along the path. And just get used to it, baby.
And you're right, and that I think especially if you truly love art unto itself, right? Like if the journey is the point for you, um, it is really fucking hard.
Yeah, and just accept failure, Failure can be your best friend. Sometimes you don't even know it.
Do you feel you've had any large failures?
Oh yeah, you know. Um, Regrets like in life, yeah, sure. Everybody does, but failures are like death by 1,000, pinpricks. There's, failures every day.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just like, yeah, I can analogize it to like my drawing style. I use my eraser a lot more than I use the graphite. It's
fair
just all
enough.
about, you know, doing something over and over and over and changing it. That's not, this is, yeah.
Yeah. Well, also, it does seem to me you must have like the patience of a saint. You seem like you are able to iterate and iterate and iterate, and it just does not wear you down.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
pretty
which
much. I
that's
got
a
nothing but
talent.
nothing but time. Yeah.
Ugh, it's still a talent, and to have that ability to
Well, this is an interesting thing. I was talking to Jules about it the other day, and it
hmm,
was like I've come to realize that I have worked so hard getting other people to do things for me
sure,
because I'm actually very limited in terms of what I can do and what my capabilities are, like really dyslexic and can, hardly, put two and two together and have like, imagining, with the guys at Cascade talking about, well, I want to have my dream is to have my own movie studio in Berkeley. I mean, what the fuck? I mean,
yeah,
how in like the, early mid 70s could I even possibly think for a moment that that was even a possibility? And with Mad God and finally finishing it, it's just like there are all these things that like add up to, you know what? I mean, I wouldn't have to like really try too hard to convince me that I'm not living in a simulation, because things have just worked out so far so good, but it's the old story of, well, what is it? It's the guy that's falling off at the 50-story, building, and every floor that he goes down, he goes like so far so good,
yeah.
right? So that's where I'm at.
We'll see what happens on impact.
Yeah, indeed. Well, I know.
Fair
Yeah.
enough.